So it's just after 10 today on the 15th of June. So it's great to see you all here this morning, guys, wherever you are. So yeah, as you're joining, just please join the VVox link and please join the VVox link and just add your voice to the conversation today. So we're gonna kick off, I suppose, in a minute. So just you can all hear me, you can all see me. That's all great, and the VVox is fine. So as I said, it's great to see you all today at this collective end of year event. As I said, we'll have the VVox open here to leave it open in the background. What I'll do with you now is I'll just bring you through the flow and the agenda for today. So obviously first, hello and welcome to everyone today. It's great to see you all. The flow and the agenda in a few minutes time, the opening will be by Dr. Helen Murphy, the Head of Education and Lifelong Learning. Ken McCarthy then is going to share some information about CTEL and TEL. We're then going to take a look back at the the community of practice review, the community of practice that we've just had for the number of sessions we've had over the last year. Then we're going to have a look at what I call the just a minute videos, and it'll all become clear as I get there. We'll then have breakout number one. What we have today are two keynote speakers. One is Naomi Wahls from TU Delft in the Netherlands. And the second keynote then is Dr. Glynn from DCU. So after the first keynote, we'll have a break and then we'll have a quick look at some supports and some new stuff that we're going to have for you guys in next semester, next year. And then we'll have the second keynote, and then we'll have breakout number two, and then we'll have a close. So basically two keynotes, the welcome, Ken, Helen, and a break in the middle. So, you know, you can enjoy your coffee and your tea in the middle of the session. So what I will ask you is just go back to Amplify. Sorry, if you go back to VVox, and the next question on the screen, you can take a little bit more time on this one, is when you hear the word Amplify, what do you think, or what words spring to mind? I'll give you a few minutes on that. And the reason I'm asking is because as a team, we brainstormed a few weeks ago in CTEL, and we were trying to come up with a name for the collective. So it's had a number of different names over the last number of different years for a number of different reasons. So it'd be interesting to know what you think that means. And then I can share with you, I guess, the key idea towards the end. Yeah, sort of brilliant. The number 11. Is that from a movie, the number 11?
Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap.
Turn it up to 11.
Yeah. What's in my head is Back to the Future, when he goes into the thing and he plugs into speakers and gets blown across the room. But yeah, proclaim, make bigger, increase, louder. No idea. Fantastic. Louder, apparent, increase the volume, the number 11. So the most common word there is louder, which is great, because I suppose that's what most people would think of when you think of the word amplify. So the number 11, dissemination, fantastic. It's good to know we're in higher education with such good words like that. Boost, empowering, proclaim, reinforce. I'll just give that another minute or two, just so you can join in there, and then we'll move on to the opening address. I see Helen is in the session, which is great. So we'll move on to that shortly. I think most people in the room have contributed, have joined in. As I've said in a lot of sessions that we've done over the year, I'm a big fan of VVox. I use it all the time for a number of different reasons, but the main reason is it gives everyone in the session a voice, whether in a live class, in a physical classroom, or in a virtual classroom. People who may typically be quiet and shy and don't really vocally contribute in a class generally always do in something like VVox. You can just take out their phone or their smartphone or their smart device, and they just click on a link and they're in, and they can contribute and they can get their voice heard. So that's fantastic. I'm going to stop. Super. So we've had everyone. Yeah. So the most common word there is louder. You can see in the middle, loud and clear. It's also mentioned in the smaller text here throughout the thing. That's brilliant. So as I said, guys, at the very end, we're going to come back to VVox. So feel free to keep it open in the background, or if you wish, we can just share the link with you again at the very end. Delighted to have Dr. Helen Murphy with us this morning. Obviously, we've been doing the collective for a number of years now, and we've been in community practice as well for a number of years. Ken and Peter and others random in previous years. So what's been a common theme for the whole thing is Helen was a constant and ongoing support in everything we do here. So it's brilliant to have Helen here today to do the opening address. And as you're aware, Helen is the head of School of Lifelong Learning and Education. So Helen, without further ado, I will pass over to you to do the opening of today's collective.
Okay. Emmett, thank you very much. Colleagues, good morning. Really great to see you all. First of all, thank you for inviting me here to open your end of year CTEL Community of Practice event. I've done VBox for the first time, so I always learn something new when I come to these events. So thank you for making me learn something new this morning. Just going to say a few words maybe about the essence and the spirit of the community of practice, and what I see as the opportunities for this community of practice as we enter into really a new era with the technological university. But maybe first of all, just a deep breath. What a year! What a year! What a period of time! I think it's really great to see most of us are still standing, or at least sitting today. We're still here. We really have lived through interesting times. The past year has seen the continuation of the global pandemic, but most restrictions have now been lifted. And for us in the university in Waterford, a return to in-person meetings, teaching both in-person, hybrid and online. So we have seen those kind of changes over the last number of months. I think we've learned a lot about ourselves, about our practice as educators, and how technology can help and the possibilities that it offers us to help support pedagogy, which is what we're about. I think this learning is so important for us that we capture what we've learned over the last period, because it's transformational. It really has changed our very being, our essence, and what we believe is possible. Today is about sharing that learning across the community with the added benefits I see of our invited guests, Naomi and Mark, who undoubtedly will have a very interesting contribution to the conversation today. A community of practice thrives on the principle of collaboration and shared practice. The reason this community of practice is so successful is that it has remained true to its principles. It's a peer-to-peer network with a shared vision and a shared purpose. So well done to everybody for, you don't often see a community of practice. Often they kind of might, I suppose, other priorities happen, people disengage and they kind of wither away. This community has remained strong since its inception. The external, I suppose, forces that we've all experienced in recent years have added to that community. But just to say, I was thinking as I was coming to this yesterday, we had a meeting about a new Erasmus Plus KA2, Key Action 2 project that we're involved in the school. And it's about a community of practice of teachers in Europe. And, you know, the seeds of what have been sown in this community of practice, and indeed the model, are something that we all have learned from and we're taking from. So it's growing in multiple different strands, if you like. So I really want to acknowledge that. The other transformational change that has taken place is, of course, the establishment of SETU on May 1st of this year. The new university, which is the youngest university in the country and the first in the Southeast region, is a game changer. The principle of this COP, collaboration, which I've mentioned already, is one which will be critical to us as we are now part of a much larger community. This COP has shown that through working together in an open, transparent and collaborative way, we can enhance our practice as educators and improve and enhance our engagement with our students. This experience is really critical to the success of the SETU, and I hope to see this event next year, if I'm invited back, stretch to participants from colleagues across all of the SETU campuses. I wish you all an enjoyable and inspiring day, and thank you again.
Helen, thanks very much for that. Really, really good to hear what you said. The common word that came out to me the whole time is sharing, which is brilliant. I think that's really, I think, what the community practice is all about. And yeah, it's nice to know we're the newest kid on the block. That's nice to know. It's, you know, it's funny that both institutes are around for a while, but we are the newest. We are the newest technological university in Ireland. So that has a nice ring to it. And again, thanks for your continuing support. And yes, you most obviously will be invited back again next year. So Helen, thanks very much for that. Any questions for Helen, guys, or anything you want to ask or contribute or add at this point?
I did think it was, I keep saying Ireland's newest university. Maybe it's a gender thing, the fact that Helen referred to us as the youngest university. Maybe it's age becomes more important as opposed to newness.
I won't mention that as some of us, for some of us, Ken, for some of us. But look, no, really wonderful to see you all here today, and I wish you a very good event. I'm sorry I can't stay for it, but I will have the recording that I can look back on. It's the last week of the academic year, so just I have a lot of commitments over the next couple of days, but I want to wish you well, and I'll see you all soon.
Thanks very much, Helen. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Helen.
Our head of department in CTEL, Ken McCarthy, is going to bring you through some information about CTEL. So it's just to give you a picture of what we've been doing probably over the last year or so in the department, and just to share some of that. So Ken, the floor is all yours.
Thanks a million, Emmett. And I'm just going to start sharing a screen here because I have about 4 slides. I think it's exactly 4 slides. Before I started, I suppose just to amplify some of what Helen has said there. It's 5 years ago that we first started these TEL Community of Practice collective events, and it was our colleague Anya Furlong and myself who had put on that first one. The first 3 were actually in person. That one 5 years ago was in the training restaurant. The following year we went down to the granary on the quay, and the most recent on-campus one was in the gallery. In the last 3 years, the last 2 which were organised by our colleague, our former colleague Peter Windle in CTEL, and this year have all been online. I have an idea in my head for next year, and just I suppose again, who knows where we'll be in a year's time, but I do have my idea for next year that we'll have a hybrid event where it will be on campus in each of the campuses, but online where they can collaborate between each of the events from each of the different places. We were probably a little bit too, it was probably a little bit too soon for this year. But looking back over the last, I suppose, 12 months, as many of you will know me, for myself personally, it's obviously been quite challenging. And this time last year was probably when a lot of I suppose the darker parts of my own story were unfolding. But it was this morning I got a quote while I was looking to put together something for this, and it was from the Greek shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis, who I never thought I'd be referring to in a talk about TEL, or even in a talk about CTEL for that matter. He said, it's during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. And I think certainly over the last 2 years, CTEL as a team, both professionally and for me personally, have focused during these dark times to see the light. But it's not all bad news. In May, we became a university, and here is a wonderful picture of our former president, Professor Willie Donnelly, together with all of the CTEL team. By that time, Peter had gone on to bigger and better things as an assistant lecturer in the Department of Computing and Mathematics. But you have the entire CTEL team as it was at that time. And there is, I suppose, some of the good news over the last 12 months. Since we spoke this time last year, we've welcomed 2 new members of staff, Natalia and Neil. It's just coincidental that they happen to have the same first initial. We're not working on an alphabetical sequence or anything like that. Natalia is working amongst other things, on the Amaze project in the Department of Engineering. And Neil, likewise, was recruited to work on the Funds Academy in the School of Business, which is a HCI Pillar 1 project, and on the European Basic Skills Network Erasmus Plus project as part of the School of Education and Lifelong Learning. So it was great to have new resources committed to the team, and it's great to see the team growing. And they bring with them a wealth of experience. The rest of the team, as you can see there, we have our stalwarts of Connor, who is not joining us today for the collective because he's on a cruise in the Adriatic at the moment. So he's got a slightly better gig than we do. And obviously, Colin,
that's a good excuse, to be fair.
It is probably just about acceptable, So I'm pretty sure that yourself, Emmett, were probably glad to see Neil and Natalia come along because you weren't the new kid on the block anymore, mentioning newness. I know that I was glad when I joined CTEL that Pete joined about 3 months after me, so I didn't get to be the new kid anymore. Moving probably into the area of what we actually do in terms of technology enhanced learning. We were lucky this year as well with the help of some project funding, and I know Fionnuala Brennan's on the call. I want to give a special call out to Fionnuala and the Spark project, because they funded VVox for us last year and indeed for next year as well. So we will have VVox, the tool that Emmett is using here this morning as an audience response system, up until at the very least the end of the next academic year. And that will be available to colleagues across all campuses. So that's a good news story. We also installed, although it's just disabled this morning because we're resolving a slight technical issue with it, thanks to Janet O'Neill in the Disability Office, Blackboard Ally. Ally is a fantastic tool for accessibility of your content within Moodle, and we kind of turned it on in the background. Students found it very, very quickly, and it allows students to download resources in multiple formats, including an audio version of any of your Word or PowerPoint documents, which is it's kind of quite cool. And then the last new tool that I just want to point out, and we'll be doing lots more training on this come September, because a lot of these were kind of quiet launches in anticipation of next year, is Panopto. Panopto is a video repository, a video content management system. And I suppose the best way to think of it is it's like our own SETU version of YouTube. So from September on, the default storage location for your Zoom videos, if you're recording anything in Zoom, will be Panopto. But you can also add additional videos. And it integrates wonderfully with Moodle and allows you to do things like, for example, if you wanted to set video assignments for students, where students have to upload a video, Panopto will facilitate that for you. But expect to hear more about it in due course. There has been lots of speculation as to what our virtual learning environment or learning management system will be in the new university. That decision hasn't been made yet. And in reality, I would expect that it's a decision that's going to take at least 2 to 3 years to be fully made and implemented. So from September, I can say with absolute 100% certainty for staff on the Waterford campus that we will still be using Moodle. And I would imagine for the following September, it'll probably be that case as well. That's about it from me. All I want to do is thank all of you for your ongoing support, both personally and professionally, and collectively indeed, given that we're at the collective today, for all of what CTEL do. It wouldn't be possible, obviously, without our students, or without any of you, the dedicated staff that we work with. And I'd like to give a 100% call out to each of the team here today to thank them for a lot of great work done. I'll start with Pete, who is no longer a member of the CTEL team, but is still a part of what we would see the broader CTEL family. Cathal, Fiona, Natalia, Neil, Emmett, Laura, and that's Laura Widger, I suppose, who is also a member of the CTEL family, was Laura McGivney. And finally, because he's away in sunnier climes, Connor. So enjoy the rest of the event. I know that Emmett has done a great job of picking up the baton, I suppose, that was passed on by Pete, and that was started 5 years ago now, which seems scary, by Anya Furlong and myself over in the training restaurant, and we'll continue the collective team. So enjoy the morning and have a good day. Thanks very much again. Thank you.
Ken, thanks a million. I love that quote. Really, really good. Wasn't exactly as you said. I wasn't expecting to hear that quote at an event, a collective event about technology enhanced learning, but that just shows it was just a really nice quote to hear. So Ken, thanks very much for that. Any questions for Ken, guys, before we moved on? I suppose it's good to hear clarity that Moodle will be still with us in September, and we'll be having some new tech in September as well, Panopto, which we will be touching upon after the break. If there's no questions, I'll just share my screen and pop back to this. We've obviously had a wide range of community practice events this year. And this section, I'm just going to bring you through what they are. So yeah, we could call it like a community of practice review, or the review of the year, or a look back, or we could call it so it's reeling in the years, community of practice 2021-2022. We started off, the first speakers we had were Dr. Margaret Tynan and Claire Carney from, they're both in the School of Business here in SETU Waterford. And what they spoke about and what they looked at was innovation. And they will both be involved in the Growth Hub, and they were looking at innovation and how innovation has been hampered or hindered or impacted by COVID-19. So it was a challenge of engaging in innovative teaching practices pre and during emergency remote teaching. So you'll kind of see there's a bit of a trend at the start, and a number of the topics dealt with some degree the impact of COVID-19. But it's brilliant to see from different viewpoints that the fact that this is still talking about innovation in the midst of that, how we could still have innovation in the middle of, during, in the middle, and after COVID. Secondly, then we had Professor Ali Armelini. He's the Dean of Digital and Distributed Learning Distributed Learning at the University of Portsmouth. So he's a very well-known speaker, and he's a very well-known expert in this field of digital education. He would have previously at a number of universities in the UK where he would have brought in kind of from the ground up the idea of hybrid learning and digital learning and creating digital spaces. And then he moved on to University of Portsmouth. So again, he was looking at the idea of discussing the seismic changes in teaching and learning, as well as the possible pre and post COVID scenarios for digital teaching and learning in higher education. So he really looked at what COVID has impacted us, but he really looked at as well as what constitutes high quality teaching going forward. And he's always really promoting and big on the idea and big on the fact that the focus is on pedagogy first, and technology is a secondary. Technology is a tool. The pedagogy is the first thing that's important. So whenever he's assessing technology, or whenever he's looking at bringing new technology into wherever universities he's in, he's always going to make sure it's just easy to use and it just works. So if you go into a space or a small classroom space, that everything in the room just works. So it's a kind of a seamless thing that the technology supports whatever it is the teacher wants to do in the room. So that was Ali Armelini. Then we moved on to Trevor Boland. Trevor works with AHEAD. He's the e-learning and digital media officer from AHEAD, based in Dublin, and he works a lot with UCD on the rollout of the national form of the Universal Design for Learning badge. So he's obviously a leading speaker and a leading practitioner in the whole area of UDL, of Universal Design for Learning. So his talk was, again, a different viewpoint, and he was looking at the flexibility and the accessibility and the voice and the choice of what the UDL can bring. And what it really brought to mind, and I actually went into the UDL badge myself this year, was a lot of people kind of presume or assume or think or guess that UDL is for some learners, but really UDL is for everybody. You know, so it can be a case that it just, by having stuff that give multiple means and multiple means of engagement and multiple means of representation, can really help all learners. It doesn't matter if you need additional needs or supports or not. And that's what he looked at, about bringing attention and assumptions to challenge to the UDL and how we can tackle them productively. And we can look at the student journey and then constantly think about UDL throughout. Next up, we had Professor Felicity Kelleher, and this session was an in-person session in the Growth Hub, and Felicity is in the School of Business here in SETU Waterford, and she brought us through Lego Serious Play. So I'm not sure how many of you were at that session, but here's something that we all think of as a toy. Lego is a toy. It's something you play with. My kids have loads of it at home, and they have it all over the place, and it's a brilliant, brilliant toy to play with. But what Felicity looked at was the idea of Lego Serious Play. So actually on the day she brought in kits, actual Lego kits that were brought into the room, and we were asked like to solve a problem, or we were asked to, you know, that we had a challenge to overcome, or we had something, and then you have to build something based on that. So it's all about helping learners navigate multifaceted challenges, and it's all about improving and increasing and enhancing innovation in individual performance. And it makes you think differently and spark more insights. And it definitely did that. Like when you're building Lego and you're building Lego of a guy on a boat, and the boat's going to sink and the boat has to find land. That's not what you would typically have in a normal kind of business or professional meeting. But here you were talking about this stuff. And it did really make you think about things a little bit differently. So here you are with what you perceive to be a toy and what you think of as a toy, but then you're trying to solve like real world problems. How do we do this thing, and how do I communicate it, and how would we build it in this thing called Lego? So that was a kind of a mind shift, and it was excellent, an excellent session. Again, I know I'm biased. I'm a fan of Lego. My kids are a fan of Lego. I'd see it around the house all the time. And actually, any of you, if Ken is ever on a call, Ken always has the Lego heads behind him. So Ken, I'm guessing, is a fan of Lego too. And in most of my sessions that I give, I point out at the start that my kids love the Lego movie, and the main character's name in the Lego movie is called Emmett. So Emmett Bukowski is actually his name. Not quite exactly the same as me, but yeah, Lego is pretty much everywhere I am. So it was brilliant to see how it can be like brought in, you know, here's a professor in the School of Business talking about and sharing Lego Serious Play. And then we went on to Donna Dunn. Donna is in the School of Health Sciences here in SETU Waterford. And what she looked at, what she tried to change and what she tried to do differently and what she tried to do new because of COVID-19. So she had a kind of a format that she used previously. She does a lot of exercise type classes where she physically has to show people how to do things. So you're physically in a gym or that type of setting, or in a classroom where you're doing movements, and you're showing like a physical activity. And here all of a sudden we were in COVID and you couldn't meet people. So she had to go back and rearrange and rework and redo what she did. So she had to try a number of different things. She tried she bought OBS and she became very proficient in OBS and recording her own videos. And then she tried using stuff with Canva, and it was all about changing. So she still wanted to teach the learners and her students, but because she couldn't physically meet them in a physical space anymore, how could she do it differently? So she was able to work with Peter and colleagues in CTEL to try and figure out ways to best do that, of how best to create or create content or use content or share stuff in maybe a little bit more of an asynchronous way. Stuff could be maybe on Moodle, and then they could talk about it real time, do a bit of a flipped learning. So it was all about the evolution and showing how, like COVID, like literally when everyone into lockdown, there was restrictions on our movements, but she was able to say, pedagogy was first and foremost, but because she had the technology support, she was able to still get across what she needed to get across, and allowing her, as she said, to teach in a hybrid way and to be able to adapt to the changing needs of the students. Next up, we had Stephen Barnes from the Walton Institute here in SETU Waterford. And what he brought us through, Stephen is an expert in research and expert in the field of virtual reality and augmented reality. He's doing extensive research in both those fields. So he's doing them research constantly on all of those. So what this session brought us through is an introduction to what augmented reality is, an introduction to what virtual reality is, and how it's currently being used. So like some people kind of think, though, it's become more prevalent now because of Meta and newer and cheaper headsets. But for a lot of people, it was still something in the future, something that might happen in the future, but it's happening now. And he was able to show us where it's happening in industries. You know, people can go and be trained up on a production line or how to take apart a car and put it back together again, all within the world of AR and VR. And it's a very interesting field, and it's great to see that we here in SETU Waterford are doing extensive research in this. But it was great again to see that, like, pedagogy is still first, but the technology is evolving, and it's evolving to the point that now you have AR and VR, and the AR and VR can help you with that. So that's Stephen. Next up then we had Dr. Zita Dooley. And Dr. Zita Dooley is in the School of Education and Lifelong Learning, again in SETU Waterford, and she leads one of the programs on blended learning. So again, similar in one way to Donna, she wanted to change things up a bit. She wanted to redesign some of her elements. So we wanted to redesign some of her content based on what worked and perhaps what didn't work, and based on feedback from the previous students and current students. So yes, she was using Moodle. Yes, that's our VLE here. Yes, she had content and she had course material and curriculum she needs to get through, but she wanted to think about how she could redesign that into a newer kind of format and a newer blended learning, and all about optimizing and, you know, bringing on good practice and good research and community of practice, and optimizing and allow change to take place. So change from how our module might look and feel, and how it might be, how our students may interact and engage with it. Any questions at this point, guys? Is everybody still with me? Everyone's still awake on this Wednesday morning at 10:36? Just give me a thumbs up on the chat there. Excellent. Next up, we had Dr. Irene McCormack from School of Business in SETU Carlow. I had previously worked on a project with Irene in Carlow, and she, her background is very interesting. She had more than 20 years experience as a primetime TV producer before she moved into higher education. So she worked, I think, for RTE and BBC and some other English channels on, like, literally primetime TV. So video production, TV, all of that. And then she decided to transition into higher education. So she's teaching, as I said, in the School of Business. But what she brought in, what was really interesting to see, because I mentioned just a minute ago about how AR and VR might be kind of seen by the future, and people kind of know of some people using it, but not everybody has really maybe used it or put on a headset. Irene wanted to bring in video as an assessment. So she wanted to bring in video as an assessment, but she wanted to make it like fair and democratic, and all the students can, like, it wouldn't be fair if one student had a really good camera and another student didn't, or one student had really sophisticated video editing and another student didn't. That's kind of an unfair advantage, and it's not very a level playing field. So what she did was she researched, and she got a number of smart devices, and then they'd all put on the same piece of software, a video recording and editing software. And then as she would then, it's a very hands-on practical thing. She would then teach the students how to use it. And then on the day of the assessment, they're given 3 hours to go away on campus, record a video, edit the video, come back, and then upload it and submit it to Blackboard, all within 3 hours. So she's giving them confidence in using the tool. She's making sure the tool is relatively easy to use. And people would have seen this as being like a kind of something that couldn't happen, like an assessment, a video for assessment would typically be like someone who's doing video, who's learning, you know, videography. but she took a different approach. So by having a bank of these smart devices, and people are going to just pick them up, and she might have 20 or 10 of them, and she had, and it made it a very level playing field. So they could just pick up the thing. On it was the software. They go off, they record, they come back, they edit, they stitch, they merge, they render, and then they upload it as an assessment. So you can use your smartphone or smart device all within 3 hours. So she was able to bring something that could possibly in the future into now. Next up, we had 3 colleagues all working on the Spark project. Ken has mentioned Dr. Fanula at the start, and again, thanks to Fanula, because of this National Forum funded Spark project that she's leading, funds were able to purchase the use of Vivox. And as I said, I use Vivox all the time. There are other online platforms out there, but the key point is the same, is we have to be able to give learners and people in the class a voice. Our audience needs to be able to join in and participate and have a voice. So that's the Spark project. So the 3 lectures here, that was their commonality. They were all working and engaged. We had Fabrice Bartholin, we had Martin Welsh, and we had Dr. Fanula Brennan. And they're all connected with the Spark project. And what Fabrice and Martin were primarily sharing was their experience of using audio and video feedback. So again, similar in one way to Irene. Irene was using video as an assessment tool. Here, Fabrice and Martin were using audio and video as a way of giving feedback. And what they shared was actually incredibly interesting and incredibly brilliant on a human, emotional, touching connection level. What I mean by that is often a student submits a paper or submits something, pops it into Moodle or Blackboard or whatever you're using, and they get a grade. And that's literally it. Or they might get one note to say, you got this and this is this and you need more work. Well, what they showed was, so what they would do as well as that, Fabrice and Martin, was they would record an audio. So you can use the audio inbuilt in Moodle, and there's a video inbuilt as well. So that you can actually then give context and you can then get tone. Have you ever noticed that if you read something, you can't pick up the other person's tone? So you can often misread words, but you can, but with the tone, so Fabrice could say, yeah, look, overall, a good paper, I gave you X, it needs slight improvement on Y, but it's going in the right direction. And that sounds much better than you got 60. So they were able to use audio and video feedback. They both also did digital badges, one on getting started with personal and personal development, and then the other on universal design for learning. And they were integrating them into their projects. So the Spark has been good for SETU Waterford, in that there's a lot of different people, a lot of different departments who are working and collaborating and coming together. And one obvious tangible outcome for all of us on campus is the fact we have Vivox. So that is Fabrice, Martin, and Fanula. And then on to Gillian Fielding. So Ken touched on this earlier, a new product and a new technology that we got this year with the support again of funding from the from Janet and the Assistive Technology Office, is a technology called Ally. Hopefully some of you are familiar with it now. As Ken said, it was a soft launch, it was turned on, and we have done some sessions on it, and students have found it very, very quickly. And as Neil said there, it is a fantastic tool. So yes, it's by Blackboard, but it integrates into Moodle, it integrates into all LMSs, into all VLEs. And it basically, simply put, does this. You might upload a slide deck, and then the student goes in and the student wants more than a slide deck. And they click on a little Ally button and they can download 7 or 8 different formats. And one could be audio, as Kendra said earlier. So the student, instead of having to read, or it could be you might upload like a 10-page Word document or a 5-page document or a PDF or something. You click on Ally, click on audio, and it can then save it as an MP3. So that the student can go away and listen to it as they go for a walk, or so they don't have to just read. So it's all back to UDL, Universal Design for Learning. It's multiple means of representation and multiple means of communication and multiple means of media. So here we're giving people on the click of a button. So there's no extra work on anybody. It's just you upload content, you upload a thing to Moodle or to Blackboard, you click on Ally, the student clicks on Ally, and boom, it converts into all of this. And what it makes learning is it makes it more digitally accessible, and it can create a more inclusive learning environment and can help improve the student experience. Because we all know if learners can take control of their own learning and their own control the pace and how to get through it, it's a really, really, really useful tool. So you can see again, there's new tools and new tech that if beneficial for us and for the learners, we'll always try to see, can we bring it in? So that's the latest tool that has come in. As we said, the most recent one is Panopto, but I will touch on that shortly. Any questions about the sessions, or not even any questions? I'd prefer not to have questions. I prefer if you would just share maybe some of your own favorite moments from attending your own community of practice. As you saw, there was a wide range of topics and a wide range of speakers over the year.
Emmett, it's not so much a memory of what was favorite about it, but I think it's great to have done that review because I missed a couple of them. So it's actually really nice to get to see your overview, and I like the reeling in the ears element of it too. Thanks.
Yeah.
And we should probably point out, Emma, that most of the recordings and most of the materials are available in the TEL Community of Practice area in Moodle. So anyone that you missed that you want to hear more about, you can go back and look at it again. I was biased, of course, because I found Felicity's Lego Serious Play to be the best one. But
is that because all your Lego heads behind you?
That might be more about me than anything to do with TEL or pedagogy or any of that other kind of stuff.
Excellent. Okay, everyone's still with me, everyone's still awake, everyone's still here. Fantastic stuff. What we're going to move on to next, guys, was what we did in the last few weeks was we contacted a number of the speakers from the community practice. We basically wanted to just get people's opinion and people's to share things in a quick way. So what we asked people to do, and what I asked people to do, was share in a short little video their favorite piece of EdTech or their favorite tool or their top tip or something that they use, something that they liked doing this year and something that they might share with someone else. And then the idea was we'd have a collection of these little videos. So as I said, we contacted a number of lecturers, a number of people who spoke previously, and the question literally was, what's your favorite EdTech? What's your favorite tool? What's your favorite tip that you've used over the last year? And then they came back and we've put them all together. So I'm going to share my screen with you again. So this is going to be video. So just make sure, guys, that the video plays okay on your end. You might give me a thumbs up if that's okay. You've heard of the Just a Minute quiz. This is not quite a Just a Minute quiz, but it's just a minute videos.
Hi everyone, my name is Felicity Kelleher in the School of Business, and I've had the pleasure of working with the CTEL team for a number of years and being part of the community of practice. For me, I'm going to be old school and say that one of the great techniques that I've been using is the breakout room. I've been using it in different ways. I have, for example, been using it as a breakout room for teams, but also for placing experts in those rooms and allowing those teams to move from room to room, emulating a conference environment where they get the opportunity, where the students get the opportunity to discuss particular aspects of their projects with experts in their area. I've also been using it as a capacity for giving feedback to individuals so that people in the main room aren't disturbed. What it really does is it creates the emulation of tables, of round tables that we would naturally have in a classroom setting, and allows me to use them in a manipulative way or in a kind of a flexible way in the live virtual environment. The individuals themselves have become much more accustomed with hopping in and out of these rooms, and it also allows me to move from table to table or from room to room in a flexible way. In using experts in these rooms, it also allows me to move the students en masse from room to room and give feedback on projects that have already been spoken about. That gives them the opportunity to develop their critical analytical skills, and it's particularly useful when developing skills for those that are research-oriented students. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Hopefully it's of value.
Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about a module design method that I came across recently during an online course where they used this very method to create their own course. And this method is called the ABC Learning Design. What it does is that it aims to maximize student experience and thereby enhancing their learning engagement. I like to use the analogy of a good movie to explain what it is. It's effectively when you go and see a movie, you enjoy good characters and good story, and that's because it relies on a good storyboard. So what you'll be doing effectively when using this method is you'll be looking at using all these 6 different types of activities throughout your course to engage students in a different ways. And once you've chosen those activities, you're going to map them across your module and trying to give a lot of variety in your teaching. And ultimately, that's what I really like, is it makes you think back on how you teach, and also it engages students in a lot of different ways. So it's a lot more holistic as a result. You can find a lot more information on the abc-ld.org. Thank you.
Thanks Emmett and Ken and everyone in the team in CTEL for this opportunity and my earlier slot in CTEL Community of Practice. It's a fantastic community of practice where ideas and experimentation are king. And my remit for today's 1-minute video is to discuss my favourite EdTech. So I'm Zita Dooley, I work in the School of Education Lifelong Learning and I lead the Level 9 certificate in Technology Enhanced Learning. My background is in ICT research, mostly in the Carriganore campus of WIT, before it was SETU. And my favourite EdTech really is my imagination, and that's why today I'm in the garden, as you can see. The idea, I suppose, is that technology, in my philosophy, that technology doesn't really drive the learning, that the appetite for learning finds appropriate technology, and that's why we get such great return on investment when we do Google searches for specific things, or we go to events and find out about new technology trends and things like that. So when I'm in the garden or down the beach or outside, I'm thinking always what's cool to engage my learners with, and I've got a very diverse cohort of learners. I also use Twitter a lot for keeping up with trends, EdTech events, and I follow gurus. This year I was dead set to start class with a digital scavenger hunt, which I made up with the help of Google. And I've used a wheel of choice to randomly pick names for scheduling presentations and things like that. So I'm planning on using a coffee roulette game next year to pair up people to have a virtual coffee together. And this was an idea that was proposed yesterday at the Advanced HE event that I went to. From my class, the top EdTech favourites were Biteable this year, and the SurveyMonkey that I used to get some feedback from students was able to give me that information. So that's all from me, folks. Have fun making learning fun and engaging, and maybe make sure to light that fire of curiosity. Thanks very much. Bye bye.
I have 1 minute to tell you the pieces of technology that I have used this term to make me a better teacher. Fingers crossed, a better teacher. I have focused on 3 pieces of technology. OBS, which is stream casting software. The nature of what I teach is practical based. I need lots of examples. OBS allowed me to screen record things from YouTube and other sources and put them in and embed them into my presentations. The second thing that I've used tons and tons and tons, and it's been a game changer, is the website Canva. I use the professional version. It costs me, I think, €12 a month, but the free version is absolutely bang on and really suffice for what you're looking for. This is just a game changer when it comes to creating slides, creating presentations. It has lots of stock images and stock videos, and it's just a one-stop place for all you need to make a presentation, including grids, charts, graphs, you name it, it has it. The last thing that I needed was a video editing software, which allowed me to put everything together. However, the one thing that I really learned from this year was during lockdown, during COVID, I concentrated on producing content. In this term, I worked backwards. This term, I took a marker and a pen, and I identified first what was it that I really needed the students to learn, and from there I worked backwards. Creating video content can be overwhelming to produce and overwhelming to consume, and what made a difference was having a clearly defined outcome at the end. What I did in line with this was I changed how I delivered my content on Moodle. So I hope that those 3 tips or snippets can help you going forward. And the last bit of advice I'd give you, before you go down the rabbit hole of making technology, make sure you ask the lads in CTEL how to do stuff, because they know it all. I definitely wasted weeks of my life trying to figure it out by myself. Had I just asked the questions first, someone within the CTEL space would have pointed me in the right direction. So before you launch into a brand new project, make sure you touch base with somebody and just say, do you know how to do that? Because you'll save yourself a near nervous breakdown, and you'll save yourself weeks coming into the summer. Very important. Good luck.
Dr. Irene McCormick here from SETU, the Carlow campus. So Emmett's asked me to say what my favourite piece of tech this year is. Well, it's the same piece of tech that I used this year and last year. It's an app called KineMaster. So KineMaster is an editing app. It's very, very easy to use, and it does mirror professional practice, and I use it with the students. The students use it when they are making their assignments, and I've even set it as a 2-hour test to film and edit a piece of video, and it's worked out really well. It's a craft-based project, and the students get a huge amount out of it, and they feel that their own selves, their own identity is suffused into this activity. So KineMaster, KineMaster, it's free with the watermark.
Hi folks, my favourite EdTech tool of the year is a website called Notion. And what Notion allows you to do is to very quickly create a web page with dynamic content on it in a very easy and intuitive manner to create. Anyone at all could use it. So I have a simple page here, a little heading, a little bit of text. I've embedded an image in it. I have a link to a video that it pulls an image from, and we'll do that for any kind of web page you embed. You can stick files in there. You can embed tweets with a direct link to it. You can embed a video, and then it'll play in the page if you want. And if you're fond of things like tiles and Moodle, it can also create a tile view then for your content. If I click into the tile, it will give me a page behind that it's linked into, and then the student can click that and it'll access the content. So I just see it as a means of linking to content that you could then link from Moodle. And then within here, you can see I have code and examples, and I'm using the links out to other pages and so on, and the student can follow on. There's images embedded in there, and you can easily add videos. Another nice benefit of Notion is it automatically rescales on the phone. So you can see here in the phone view, everything still looks good. You know, it's not scrunched up, and the tiles have dynamically resized as well, and everything just looks great. I'd highly suggest anyone take a quick look at Notion if you're looking for a place to create content.
So again, thanks a million to all the contributors for that. I hope you'd agree they came back with some fantastic suggestions, stuff I wouldn't have thought of or I haven't used. And again, I just asked them, what do you think works? And that's what they came back, and what did you like? And you can see there was a wide range of stuff, completely wide range of stuff. What we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to very quickly, it's an exercise for you. You have to up and 10 star jumps and then 20 press ups. No, you can do that later on. What I want you to do now is we're going to go into breakout rooms, and there's simply 2 questions in the breakout room. So it's 5 minutes. I want you, when you go into the breakout room, I want you to say hello to everyone in the breakout room, which is just a decent thing to do. And then question number 1, which of the tools that were mentioned or the tech are new to you? And then the second question is, which ones do you think you might try next year? So have a chat. So this is about, again, chat, consider, and collaborate. And if you wish to, you can do 20 star jumps as well while you're doing it in the privacy of the small little breakout room. It's like an ultra hit class. So breakout number 1, what we're going to do is just which is new to you and which ones might you try next year. So I've set up a Google Forms. So hopefully, Natalia, if you can share the link in the chat. So what the Google Forms is going to look like is it's going to look like this. So I want you all to open the form before you go in. And when you go in, the form will look like this. Can everyone see that? So just here's what the 2 questions are. And as a group, just pop in here as you're there, which ones are new to you and which ones might you try next year, or which ones would you like to think about trying next year. So hopefully Natalia has that in the chat. If you don't, Natalia, give me a shout and I can pop it in.
That's in there, Dennis.
Excellent. Sorry, I missed that. Thank you very much, Natalia. Yeah, so guys, can everyone see that? If you click on that link there, just click on that link first and make sure you get to that form. So it should say breakout number 1. So click on that. You should see this. And just let me know, give me a thumbs up in the chat, or give me a thumbs up in the real world here. Give me a thumbs up that you're in there. Perfect. And now what we'll do is we'll create the breakout rooms. So we'll aim for 5 minutes, guys. So it's just 11. We'll get you back about 5 past 11.
Oh.
Welcome back, everybody.
Naomi.
So what was the record? Who did the most press ups?
Ken got 50. And
50?
We're dragged back, yeah.
How would you get, Neil?
He's gone for a lie down.
I managed 3.
3. Yeah. For breakout 2, we're going to do pull-ups because they're significantly harder than press ups. And if you can do more than 1 pull-up, that means you're in the top 10% fitness levels in the country, I think.
Get speakers go first.
Yeah. So guys, thanks a million for that. I hope you all got to say hello. I'm just going to share my screen and we can just take a quick look at what the feedback was from what you discussed. So yeah, I hope you agree. Like for me, it was brilliant to see the amount of different speakers with different technology and different things they liked. So we'll just take a look at what you came back with if we just click on responses here. So which ones are new to you? A lot of people, 3 people said Notion. A lot of people said Notion and KineMaster, OBS and KineMaster, Notion and KineMaster, KineMaster, Notion and Ally. And then if we go on to which ones would they like to do in the future? We had a lot of Notions and we had Canva. Which one would you try next year? So we had Notion a lot, Canva, Notion, and someone laughing out loud. Notion used breakout rooms a bit differently. KineMaster, Ally, OBS, Notion. So you can see by people just saying in a quick video, this is what I do and this is how I use it and this is what I like, you can see straight away the impact it's having on people. That if we take a summary there, so a lot of people said that Notion was new to them, but also a lot of people said they would like to try Notion next year. But
yeah, just on that, Amos, the comment was, and I suppose I made it, so I'm going to throw it out here again. It's just, we didn't want to rock the boat, but we'd like to know where Martin got the notion to talk about Notion.
That's like a philosophical question. It's a bit too deep. But Martin, do you want to answer that one, Martin? Where did you get the notion to talk about Notion?
Oh, yeah, it is a bit of that's like a bottle of wine type question or something. You want to pontificate on that one for a while.
Yeah. But again, thanks everyone for joining in. I hope you see it was beneficial. There was a lot to take in this morning, so just having a quick breakout and doing 50 press ups is always a good thing. And you got to see what was new and think about what you might try next year. Next up is our first keynote speaker. And our first keynote speaker is Naomi Wahls from TU Delft, previously a colleague of our new colleague, Neil. They work together in the Netherlands. She's coming to you live from the Netherlands. It has a real Eurovision feel to this morning. She'll give Ireland 2 points, hopefully. So Naomi is a leading designer and continuing professional development coordinator at Delft University of Technology. So again, we're the new kid on the block. We're the new TU here in Ireland, but Delft is a TU in the Netherlands. She looks at topics related to society, peace, justice, gender, and equity. She has an MA in Spanish and an MA in Information and Learning Technology from the University of Colorado, Denver. So she's actually American and also Luxembourgish, I've been informed. So American and Luxembourgish. She's currently starting her PhD in Educational Technology in TU Delft in using game design patterns to create meaningful interactions and increase student engagement. And the key idea of our topic today is about increasing student engagement. So Naomi, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to yourself. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm looking forward to hearing your talk.
All right, so you should see my slides now.
Excellent, Naomi, you can see that perfectly.
So I'm going to be talking today about the flow of engagement for blended and online teaching. And I've been supporting higher education for quite a while, and we're going to do one icebreaker to get some background. But first, I want to kind of bring up one of the main papers that has really been one that I keep going back to, particularly in the last 2 years. But David Halsell in 2019 wrote a paper on when co-occurring factors impact adult learners. And he had 3 considerations, which I think are really valuable, because the first 2 are often that we see the educational background considerations. That's kind of like your first generation students who might need additional support. The second one is disability considerations, which you often see on campus in some sort of center that supports different accessibility issues. The third one is one that isn't as so common that you can visibly see, and that's more the status consideration. And sometimes it's not fully diagnosed or known, and sometimes the learner themselves may not know everything. So part of what I do with student engagement is trying to figure out how to address needs for all 3 of those areas. And particularly with the third one, status considerations, those are the ones that are more likely to drop out from not feeling like they fit in, belong, or not feeling like they fit that program. So they might even switch completely to a different career or a different university. The risks there are more on their ability to have fun and feel like they belong in that setting. So what I am looking at for my PhD, so you'll see this little draft image, and I'm just showing it real quick. But what I really look at is how to include fun as part of that definition of student engagement. As part of student engagement, we usually see things like how they are with their social community, if there's a sense of belonging, their social presence, the skills that they need to gain or already have, and how they perform. The way that I'm looking at it is that there's different interactions between students that kind of create some of that, but there's also tasks and activities. But the main core that I see is that the student themselves has to have a meaningful experience or meaningful interactions, or they at least have to understand the purpose of whatever they're doing inside of that course or program. And of course, well-being affects all of those aspects. And I'm looking at for my PhD, what game design patterns can be used to influence some of that. So I bring this up just so you can kind of get a perspective of what I look at overall. But Neil knows me pretty well in this, is I usually like to start off with an icebreaker. So in the chat, I want you to answer 2 questions. And that's the first one is how many years have you been teaching or supporting higher education in some way? So for me, it's been about 16 years. And for a fun part of the icebreaker, Emmett and I talked about I run. And so I usually like to look for songs to really get pumped up and like get going. So what song do you use as a pump up the volume or finish when you don't want to? If you can add that to the chat. Mine is that like I've been supporting higher education for about 16 years, and my go-to song when I absolutely want to stop running is usually Don't Let Me Down, because then I'm like trying to talk myself into it that I can finish and get there. But if you can add that to the chat, I can't see the chat now, so I'm hoping that people are adding something. But this is just a little fun icebreaker for you all. So then I get to see what's fun is like to see how many people have been kind of on the newer side and how many are a little bit older into how many years they've been supporting campus. I think that's kind of the fun thing. But I do want to add one other icebreaker that you can use for later, for your coffee chat later. And that is, what is one thing that others look up to you for or amazed by, but you don't feel you're good at? And me, I added, mine is running a marathon, because people get really impressed that I run. It's just that I'm one of the last to cross. So I see everyone and I'm like the back of the pack, but it's still that I finish. And so people get so impressed, and I'm like, it feels great that I ran it, but I'm not really that great. So that's something that you might do is at your coffee chat later. If you have something, you can bring that up. And I'm just going
to
say,
Naomi, if you finish a marathon, you can't undersell yourself. You just,
I know, right?
You can't just say, I just finished 26 miles yesterday.
Yeah, I just did a few here. Oh, great. I see some people have put in their how many years and some great songs here. That's nice. So I saw, I think 35 years, maybe the most amount of years. So we have someone for at least 35 years. And I think the youngest one is around 4 years in the field. That's great. I do this because it's also fun sometimes to find out who's been at the university at the same place for the same time too. But okay, so that's the icebreaker questions. And the thing about icebreakers is I used to do virtual exchanges where I would connect a course with another course. And the main thing was usually to see how long it took them to actually interact with each other, what they needed in order to collaborate and finish their assignments. And what I found is they generally needed, if it was fully online, they needed at least 4 weeks, and they needed some icebreakers for each week during that 4-week period of time. We also found that they could go up to like the 8 weeks was nice. Anything past 8 weeks, the two universities never had any matching schedule beyond that. So that was the most amount that we had. But if it got to the 4 to 8 weeks, there was always more collaboration and the students had more interest. But what we did is the icebreaker for the first week was always fun, completely not related to content or program. Then the weeks 1 through 3 had something connection to the content. So it might be, what got you into this course. It might be something that a news article that they saw, whatever it is. And the similar thing for weeks 4 to 7. But the last one on week 8 would be something like, what motivates you to be in this program or this career? What's driven you into this, so that it further establishes their interest in some way to keep going. And that's kind of the structure I use for icebreakers. And I really do feel like it's something that's really necessary. As I hear some struggles coming back to campus, in order to get the students to actually show up, but also to show up outside of your classroom with each other and bond. There's a few questions that I have here that I've used before just to get them more interested, and it kind of creates their interest to show up more in class. So these are the fun things, like the top question here: what is the first thing that you brought with you to live on campus that you absolutely will never use? This is the type of thing that you will get people to answer sparkle heels, snake heels, and then they connect and they're like, you brought heels too? Well, let's go on Tuesday to campus and we're going to wear it for that one event. And then they feel better about themselves usually, and then they start to connect. And that's kind of what this purpose of is, trying to drive them to come back, but also to come up with a different, interest. So these are just some fun icebreakers overall. But we're not here just to talk about icebreakers. We're here to talk about other stuff. And so what I do want to bring up is that right now I'm teaching a course on blended learning for Digital Pro. It is more of a MOOC self-run course. And I use like bi-weekly webinars to basically have some sort of synchronous interaction. And that's where we have that engagement essentially. And that's where they get their feedback. Inside of that Digital Pro course, it's founded on the embed project that was previously there. And these terms in front of you, you're probably very familiar with in some way. So I'll leave the terms up here, but this is more on the blended education setting. What was new to this project was the remote teaching definition, so we've added that. As part of Digital Pro, there's also another university in Belgium who's doing the hybrid synchronous version. And there's a group that is doing the online course. The hybrid synchronous, though, I did find it interesting is that there's a lot of terms for hybrid out there, and sometimes it kind of is similar to blended. But what I would say, whatever you're using, just make sure that it's clear what you're talking about. I do notice that terms are stuck to the platform or university. And I find that that's the same thing throughout. So I just wanted to at least bring that up. But from our side here at TU Delft, we use what's called like a blended learning wave. And we specifically look at what activities are going to be planned online and which ones are face-to-face. And there should be some sort of flow between those activities so that it makes sense for engagement. So if you need something to be able to talk to each other in person first, then you would do something online first and then meet in person to do the conversation and maybe follow up online. So then our wave would look something like some sort of activity at the beginning, some sort of discussion and peer instruction maybe at the end, later doing some calculations, preparing for a lecture, and a few other activities. So there should be some sort of actual flow that you can see in your a blended course, essentially. I would say this is the same in online in the sense that what they do independently versus what they do together should be planned in a way that the activity makes sense and there's still some sort of free flow. I always look at this slide, realizing that you realize in a face-to-face course, students don't usually do the things that you ask them to do first. They always go meet in person and maybe look at your syllabus, but they don't really always do the pre-work until they've actually met for the first time. So sometimes this wave should actually start from the beginning of the face-to-face and then have a natural flow. But just to be aware of that, as far as like a flipped classroom model, it's usually that they have to see something in person first. So part of the output of the Digital Pro was this report that we did. And it is found on a website, which I will share later. But there was two components here. One was the emergency report, or the emergency support, sorry. And inside of that support, we talked about the things that educational entities needed. One was having the list of everything that they could use at their hands pretty easily. But the other thing that we found was like some sort of weekly webinar for the lectures, really enabled them to have more of a coffee chat hour where they could talk, discuss, and we could make changes. Centralizing licenses was a great idea, but it actually takes a lot longer to do. So I'm not sure how it is for you all over there, but that was one of the issues that we noticed. And then kind of piloting some of the tools. We also found that adding social elements was really important for that component, particularly during the COVID times. Part of that literature review looked at isolated students and how some of the similarities of behavior during particularly our curfew lockdown for isolated students was a little bit more similar to those who have complex PTSD in the sense of having flashbacks of situations that they cannot control. So some of the treatment for complex PTSD usually has something more to do with adding fun and making stronger connections. So that's one of the reasons why we were looking at social spaces and having meaningful interactions, but also in a space that they can have fun with the content area in some component. Anyway, there's going to be another literature review that goes a little bit further into that in the future. But I'm just going to show the course that I'm teaching has one webinar left. It's still open for enrollment. And these are the modules that you see. I'm actually going to share out the link so you can always check that out. It will be a course that you can access and actually use to download later if you want to, and you can use it in your own institute, but it's something there. We did a pre-survey asking the learners in that course specifically if they saw a need for social elements in their courses. Most of them said that they did feel the need. And when asked what they attempted to try so far, most of them had done something with group work. A few had done some things with icebreakers, and you'll see some with game-based learning, quests, and other things like that. So as far as tool exploration, because I usually get questions about, well, what tool works? I do the reverse, where I ask them to go explore what they found, and then we look at if it can achieve their goals. So inside of that module, you'll see some of the results that when they do their own tool exploration and they find what it works. This is the list of different tools that people were exploring. And one that might be new to everyone here is Kaolo. And that actually is the one that I gave as an example. So that's why it's one of the prominent ones here. So I'll skip over quite a bit of this, but I just wanted to show the tool that we have inside the course. And I wanted to highlight some tools that you can use. This one has like a course design template, and then it has the embed course level, which ends with a course report. So you can always check and see where your course is compared to others at the embed course. So let me just show, this is like the storyboard look of it on that one slide. And inside of the tool, this is kind of what you'll see is stuff like, and then you can choose, and this is the embed dimension, so you can check and see what that looks like. I'm just going to skip over some of this and go to the actual pages of these ones, which was the purpose of media. And these just to give you a quick tour of different tools that you can use to be a little bit more engaging. So I'm going to stop sharing and switch over to share my website options here really quick, if I can find it. There we are. So inside of this is where you'll find the reports. You can sign up for this course. At the end, you'll also be able to see the multiplier event, but you'll also be able to see the tool as a download. It's not there yet, but you'll be able to access that tool that I briefly showed. And that's where you can see where your course is for the embed on the blended side. If you're fully teaching an online course, we do have the online learning hub, and there it's broken down into 4 different phases. There's a nice detailed roadmap if you're ever looking at the process of developing a course. But what's nice here is there is an online learning experience tool, and there's a paper on that tool. And there's also like a tool graph that you can actually wind up coming up with your own based on the information you input. And then you'll get your own little spider graph for your own course. So then you can make choices if you're designing a new course. This is really for an online version, but I'll share out those links so you can see those. And there's a lot of different resources that you can find here as far as developing a course. But the purpose of media is something that we recently released. And this is a tool that goes over what type of media you might want to create. Or you can even have your students create something. So you can look at what you might want. There's some nice examples. And then you can kind of build something further out. As you can see, TU Delft usually has a lecture and slides, but there's a lot of different options here. I'll share that link out too, so you can see that. But if you're looking for ideas on how to be more engaging, you can pick according to here, just to give some ideas. So I know I've talked quite a bit here, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to also let you know I'm a UNESCO Hub coordinator, and there's a program called Open Education for a Better World. And that program every fall has a call for mentors and for developers. I would imagine that at least maybe one of you might be interested in being a mentor at some point. And if so, just look for a call somewhere around October, but I'll share that link out here in the chat as well. So I said a lot and I gave quite a bit of tools, so I'm kind of curious. I'll stop sharing and I'll add some things to the chat so you can see those. But does anyone have any questions?
Maybe just a comment. Thanks, Naomi. Great to see you again. The UNESCO thing was excellent. I did it last year and I supported a MOOC on peace building in South Africa. It was a really rewarding project and I made some excellent contacts. So I'd advise anyone who's thinking of kind of becoming a mentor for the foundation to give it a try. It's been really, really beneficial.
Great, thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna share out a few more of these tools. I'm curious though too, has anyone used a tool to evaluate their own course? Just to see where you're at in any way? Has anyone, and if you have, what have you used?
I'm not the best person to talk about this element of it, but I work with the HDIP and computer science, which is completely online. And Naomi, I actually would love to have a chat with you sometime. I'm look after online engagement. So it's a reasonably new role here in SETU. So I'm interested in lots of things in your presentation. Thanks a million. But they use tutors, and they have a they have analytics to be able to see student engagement with individual elements of the program. So if a student has done how many hours they put in, whether they've done a particular lab, whether they've done a lecture, watched a lecture or whatever. So they find that helpful just to give a guide. We don't rely on it, but if somebody is slipping, then they're able to flag that. And we decide then as a team whether the lecturers approach the student or maybe I approach the student. They would do more of the academic side, and then I do the my area is called life, etc. So it's everything from time management, you know, adult learners who are doing fully online. It's not a simple case of whether you can do the course. In fact, most people actually who drop out, it's not about their ability, it's about fitting it into their life. So we're, I suppose my role at the moment is a kind of a pilot project to see, does it make a difference to have this type of support as well? But yeah, they find tutors analytics helpful with just identifying people who may be at risk for some reason.
Yeah, so when I taught in Colorado, we used like what we called an early alert system, and it was particularly for the first generation students. And we had it connected to the registration system, so we knew all of their information versus a platform which doesn't usually have all that information. And then the earlier alert system connected between the two. So we could, they gave us a list of everyone that was on that first generation. And in the first 2 weeks, we had to say whether or not they showed up, if they completed their first assignment. But if we also noticed that someone else in the class wasn't showing up, wasn't participating, we could flag them to be added to that early alert, even if they weren't first generation. And then as long as 2 professors reflagged them as being off the list, then they wouldn't get back on it for the next semester. So I saw some benefits to it overall. It did increase the students' engagement. And the way that I used, we used Brightspace for that particular course. So we use like an intelligent agent where it basically like sets certain things, like if they haven't logged in, then they get this email. If they haven't completed something, then they would get this other email. I find it very helpful to do that, but it also took a lot of time to put all of those templates together. So if you are supporting a faculty or lecturers in that sense, if you can provide them maybe with a template of, you know, this is the intelligent agent of if the student hasn't logged in, this is an email that you could set up. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think I had to set up the intelligent agent for every single course each time I do a course copy. So that might be something that you can look into too, is how to better support them so they know what types of things they should be adding to a course to better get a hold of those people who aren't engaging in a course. That might be helpful. But yes, I'm happy to connect if you do have any further questions or comments.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, just ask your question there about course evaluation. I know Emmett has it on the agenda for later if we get to it. The online consortium Oscar scorecard is a tool that we've been looking at a bit recently. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
What was it called? The online scorecard?
Yeah, it's the Oscar. You might have the actual name of it there. It is the online consortium develops it as part of the State University of New York.
Okay, I think I'm familiar with their other one. They had one on quality assurance. I've seen a couple other, I think online OLC has one on quality assurance, and that's the one I've used. It is kind of similar to a scorecard. I don't remember if that's what it was called actually, because you basically list out everything on a chart and there's like several different columns. It might be that same document actually.
Yeah,
I know
it sounds the same.
Yeah, I know it as like the quality assurance. Actually, on that note, Wisconsin, my home state, everything is centralized. So all the online education departments essentially for each university centralized in one space. But the way that they design courses is you're supposed to actually start with a quality assurance document as you start to build out the course, and then there's a check before it launches, and then after the review at the end. So there's a 3-point quality assurance for the courses that are in online in Wisconsin. I did work mainly in Colorado, which we did not use like a quality assurance at that level. And I know here we're starting to look at some sort of quality assurance check besides just at the end. So, and I see the purpose of media. Yeah, I can pop that in. I thought I did it at the beginning, but I can certainly add that.
No, it's been shared. I think we're okay there, Naomi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the one comment here on the, I'm using check-in circles at the beginning and at the end of the course and working in it with similar, yeah, the unrelated. One other person on our campus had an interesting one where they introduce themselves and they have to do like a roses and thorns, where they had to say something positive, but also like say something that wasn't so awesome. And they used that during lockdown. Which you can get some really interesting answers, but I think it depends on the instructor and the crowd too, as to, you know, what can happen. And as long as you're ready to roll with the punches of whatever comes, I think it's kind of good too. But the person that I mentioned, David Housel, at the beginning, he advocates for universal design, and he mentions that the educator should not be like a therapist or a counselor, but they actually should be able to kind of navigate and be able to be understanding when needed and point people to the right directions while still refocusing on content. But I like how he talks about some of that. Yeah, any other questions or comments? No? You'll notice that I didn't just give you a list of tools to use, by the way, and I do that purposely because every university has their own tools that they support. But I usually try to help people learn how to find the pros and cons of their own tools and go explore what works for them. And then it's nice that you kind of did that already, where you were talking about new tools at the beginning of this, and then what you might want to explore or look into.
Naomi, thanks again for your time, and thanks for an excellent talk. And yeah, I think we'll definitely be checking out a lot of the links you gave. I think that the purpose of media one looks fantastic. It's just brilliant to see in clear, kind of simple English, why would you do something over something else that looks really good. So really great to meet you recently, and really great to have you here today. So guys, if there's no further questions, what we might just do, go for a coffee break. It is now 11:39, so we'll go for a 10-minute coffee break and we'll return at 11:50. So I'm giving you 11 minutes. I've been very generous. We had a wonderful 10-minute break. I got lots done, gone for a run, got some coffee, got some tea, whatever. I just filled up a water bottle. That'll keep me going for a while. So guys, great to see you all back here again. I see Mark is in the room. Mark will be our keynote speaker shortly. I'm just going to share my slide deck and I'm going to bring you through some bits and pieces before we move on to our second keynote speaker. So just give me a thumbs up in the chat or on the thing. Did everyone have a nice break? Is everyone okay? Is everyone still good today? Excellent. I hope you all had a wonderful time. So what this section now, guys, I'm going to just quickly bring you through in 10 or 15 minutes or so is we have lots of things and lots of pedagogical and lots of technology support that we do for you on a daily basis. But there's a number of things that will be slightly new or something that we're constantly evolving. So there are a few things that will be new this year, and I'm going to share them with you very quickly now. So what we're going to share the next 15 minutes or so is e-portfolios. Ken mentioned that the Oscar scorecard is actually OSCQR, but Oscar scorecard. And our latest tech is Panopto. So this will be kicking in more in September, but just to make you aware that we have these available for you. So as Ken's at the very start, our colleague Connor is not with us today because he's currently on a cruise, but here's something he prepared earlier.
Here in SETU, we're inspiring futures. We want all our students to be inspired, feel motivated, and be driven, and to be whatever they want to be. Our digital landscape has changed. We now have tailored solutions for lots of different requirements. and we now have an e-portfolio system to match those requirements. I'd like to introduce you to Mahara. With 3 simple steps, you can create your e-portfolio, control your privacy, and engage with other users. Hi everyone, my name is Connor and I work in the CTEL team. As part of my role, I'm the project lead for the e-portfolio implementation here in SETU Waterford. I presented Mahara and e-portfolios to the community of practice earlier this academic year, and I just wanted to send out a reminder message. So if you think that e-portfolios would be a nice fit as part of your students' learning experience, just let me know. Thanks and enjoy the rest of the event.
So thanks a million to Connor for that. Yes, so guys, hopefully most of you are familiar with the fact we have Mahara, which is e-portfolio, and Connor just making the point that people are starting to use a bit more and we can continue to support that. Just going to briefly touch on this, the Oscar scorecard. What it is a self-assessment tool. And what that basically means is a lot of us have been teaching now for a number of years and particularly using Moodle. So especially with COVID, more and more people went to putting content online and hosting content on Moodle. So this is it's a checklist. It's simply to use for you to review your online modules. And the link is there and Natalia has shared it in the chat. It's not developed by us. It's developed by Professor Meg Benke. She's adjunct professor here in SETU Waterford, and her team and her department and her universities in the States have developed this. And it's basically a rubric. So it's in all essential purposes, it's a way of checking. So it's just like the sense check. It's to be an objective look back. And it just asks you a very straightforward question. Does it include a welcome on getting started content? Does it provide an orientation? So it's a checklist. You just go through the checklist, you apply to your content, and you just check where you are. And it's simply a self-assessment tool. That's what it is. It's just for you to take a look at your own content, your own layout, your own design, your own structure of your Moodle, and then you can see, can I make it a little bit better? So it's just an independent course design review. And that's Oscar. It's pronounced Oscar, but there is a Q there, but you can't really pronounce the Q because it's too weird to pronounce the Q. The last thing I'm going to share with you very, very briefly is Ken mentioned earlier is Panopto. So we've got a campus-wide license, and it will be effective, and people will be using more and more from next semester on. So think of it as a video hosting platform, or as Ken said, think of it as like our in-house YouTube. It has lots of very clever and very advanced features and functionality. It integrates with Moodle, it integrates with Zoom. So if you record something on Zoom, it can automatically go and be hosted on Panopto. If you do something in Moodle, you can automatically have a folder created on Panopto. You can upload existing videos. You might already have existing videos and you want to take them off YouTube or take them off somewhere else and store them in a more secure place, and that is Panopto. You can record directly from the browser, which is a fantastic thing. So we do a lot of sessions and we support a lot of people using screencasts, and we have dedicated screencasting software that we have licensed for here, but this allows you to have it all built in. So you go into Panopto, you open a browser and you can record this like a screencast, and you can record the screen and you to the camera all directly from a browser. So what they kind of say is stop typing and start recording. One of the other very advanced features, which is really clever, really clever, is an advanced search and text and captions. What that means is this. So you do recording for 45 minutes and it's stored automatically in Panopto. Fantastic. And you want to go back then 3 months later, or your learners want to go back 3 months later. And what it does is you have a 45-minute video and it automatically gives you a transcription. So all the words are next to the video, which is great. That's super. But what's even better is you can search for a word. So say you want to search for the word, I don't know, hybrid, learning, I don't know, technology, exam, whatever. It'll bring you to that exact moment when the lecturer said that word in the video. So you don't have to scroll over and back. You can just search for the word, find the word, and then it'll bring you straight there. So that is Panopto. So for a very quick first look, I'm going to hand you over to Carl, who's just going to give you a very quick first look. So Carl, take it away for about 5 minutes or so.
Thanks, Emmett. I'm just going to share my screen there. So here's one I prepared earlier, as they say. This is when you come into your module from September, you're going to see one of two things. First of all, in the welcome area, you'll see a little link to Panopto there. And in the sidebar in the blocks area, you'll also see a Panopto block. which gives you a sort of a synopsis of what is available in your Panopto area. So if I go into the little Panopto activity here, this gives you a view of the area, and it's named for the name of the module that you are in. So in my case, this is my test module, Defense Against the Dark Arts. I have a folder in Panopto of the same name. It lists all the videos that I've uploaded or recorded within the recording facilities. And as Emmett mentioned, one of the really nice features here is if I just go into this video as though I'm playing it. So Emmett provided me with that. It was uploaded earlier, but what it does is it processes the video and it does text or speech to text. So there's a list of captions here, and I can search that for all the mentions of VBox. So unfortunately there aren't any, but there are other things, we'll say, that are mentioned in it, like say EdTech. And it'll jump to that section of the video where Emmett mentions it. So it gives students the option or the ability to jump through the video to the content of interest within it, which is a really nice feature. There's many more features of the tool. One of the things it does is it integrates with Zoom, so it'll automatically, any video that you, or any Zoom sessions that you schedule within Moodle that produce a cloud recording, it will automatically pull that into Panopto. And if you have a chat session in it, it will populate this discussion tab here with all the chat that went on within that. So effectively it creates like a one-stop area for your students to view all the content that has been produced within your module. And there's lots more, as I say, that I could talk about, but we only have a couple of minutes here. So that's just the features I just wanted to bring to your attention. But again, that's coming in September. We will you will start seeing that within your September 2022-23 modules. And please make use of it. Thanks.
Thanks a million, Carl. Any questions on that, guys? So yeah, as I said, there's lots of stuff, and the Panopto one is kind of the big one that's coming down the track. I know there's only a very quick demo, but there's a lot it can do and a lot we all need to learn about over the summer. But Carl did just show one of the features there. Any questions there, guys? Before we move on.
Fanula has a question in the chat.
Fanula, Carl, can you see that? Can we record via Panopto too?
Yeah, that's correct. You can record. There's a tool integrated, so it does it within the browser. So, and it does a nice thing there where you can do yourself in picture with your slides as well. So you can share a screen and have yourself in that same screen as well. So you can deliver over your slides, we'll say. So it's a really nice feature.
And yeah, Fanula, yeah, well, everybody on campus in SETU Waterford will automatically have access to that. Yeah. Guys, if there's no further questions, as I said, that was just a very quick just look at some of the new things that we're supporting you with from next semester onwards. Next up now, we have our second keynote speaker of the day, and it's Dr. Mark Glynn from DCU. So just give you a quick introduction to Mark before I hand over to Mark. Earlier on, we had Naomi live from the Netherlands, and now we have Mark live from Dublin, from DCU. Just a quick bio. Mark has a PhD in chemistry and an MS and a master's in e-learning and more certificates in learning and teaching in higher education. He was previously in industry, and then in 2008 moved into higher level academia. And he's currently the head of the Teaching Enhancement Unit in DCU. So he's there since 2012. So as you'd imagine, he leads a team of people enhancing the learning experience of students within DCU. He has direct involvement with cutting-edge innovative teaching techniques and learning technologies being implemented throughout the university. His key interests are learning, technology-enhanced learning, learning analytics, and flexible learning. And he plays leadership roles in promoting innovative and teaching and learning methods throughout the sector. And he is a leading authority on virtual learning environments, assessment design, and again, universal design for learning. So with that, Mark, I'd like to welcome you to our collective event today, and I'll stop sharing my screen and you can take it away.
Thanks, Emmett, and I want to thank my mum for making that speech for me to make me sound so great, and that's definitely not the description that Emmett gave me when we were in the pub there a few weeks ago at EdTech, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Can you see my screen? Can you see the slides? Yeah, you can. Perfect. Right. Feel free at any stage, if it's of use to you or interest, to take screenshots and tweet, or just take screenshots of stuff you're interested in. But I will also share the slides, Emmett, and actually I'll drop them in the text box, chat box here, so people can have them afterwards. But cut, paste, plagiarize, harvest, whatever suits you. I'm not precious in the slightest. So, as Emmett said, my name is Mark Glynn. You can catch me there on Twitter. If you're on email, it's mark.glynn@dcu.ie. And I'm here to talk to you about improving Moodle for student engagement. And just as a sort of a health warning, we have all of our learning technologies branded under the one name within DCU. And that name is called Loop. So you may hear me mention Loop, and I promise I'll slap myself for doing it here, for confusing you. But when I say Loop in this context, I actually mean Moodle. Okay. So I want to talk about two specific initiatives, how we improved our Moodle site to engage students and to increase engagement with students through using two particular techniques. One is gamification and the other is co-creation. And we've most recently adopted, wherever possible, we've adopted a students as partners approach in our curriculum and indeed in most of our activities that we're trying to do. And that's where co-creation has really came out of for us. But as I said, I want to talk about the two different elements, gamification and co-creation, and how we've modified Moodle to allow gamification. So for those not familiar with it, there's what's called a game continuum. So it's on a spectrum, and you have gamification on this end, which is using, as you can see there on the screen, using game-based elements like leaderboards and points and revealing special prizes or badges or something along those lines. That's using elements of games, whereas sometimes people get confused between that and game-based learning and indeed serious games. Game-based learning could be using Monopoly, an existing game, to teach accounting, or serious games tends to be where the serious money is, which typically is in the medical field, but using virtual reality or computer-based simulations to teach a particular topic. So I'm going to talk about gamification itself at the moment, right? Talking specifically about how we engage our students with our transitions program, transitions into the university. We wanted to see how they were engaging with our content and to monitor and see how we could actually make it that little bit more interactive for students to do. Very quickly, we changed our process, our transitions process, and there you'll see that very cheesy roadmap there in front of you. That's just to illustrate the fact that throughout that transitions road into DCU, they were given a series of digital badges. There was a series of prizes, both virtual and physical. There were scavenger hunts, again, both virtual and physical for them to get. And there was rewards along the way, points for everything that they'd done. And we even integrated engagement with FutureLearn as one of our MOOC platforms, getting students to engage as part of their transitions to do an external MOOC. And you'll see down the bottom of the screen, we used a plugin that you have in SETU. The plugin is called Level Up. And what we did was we identified a series of key activities throughout the transition process, and we attached points to them. So, for example, to click on a link, you may get 10 points, but to upload a document, you may get 20 points. And then to do the physical scavenger hunt on campus, you may get 60 points, and so on. So there's a variety of different points available for different tasks that students had to do to engage with the transitions process. And it was, as it says there on the screen, a mixture of digital badges, a mixture of quizzes, scavenger hunts, discussion forums. And one of the key things which makes this different to most transitions programs is as soon as they accepted their place in the university, so you're talking about the third week in August, they got access to our VLE. So their DCU account, their DCU credentials became available to the students when they accepted their place, not when they turned up on campus and registered. And that is key, because that gave us an extra 4 weeks or so with the students to engage with the transition before they actually start their course. It gave us that 4 weeks to enable to build the excitement for them to engage with the course on joining the university. So if I can bring your attention to the bottom of the screen there, where it says the various different points along the way, going on a scale from 0 up to 600. That allowed students to dip in and out to the orientation on parts that were of interest to them, and they would get points for us. If you were to do every single thing, every single activity, you would get 800 points. But we set it as a maximum of 600 points if they were to get the maximum qualification, the qualification being the full engagement with the program. But what would be interesting to Ken and what he may click on and what activities he may engage on may not be interesting to Laura. So that's how we took account of that, by attaching points to every single activity, a maximum set of 800, but we set a target. If you get 600, we'll consider you fully engaged. So the way the Level Up plugin works, and you have this, as I say, in your institution, something you may need to check is whether you have Level Up Plus, which allows you to do a little bit more with it. But as you will see, it's quite easy for you to find your activity, find a particular activity on your course. So as you will see in the bottom of the screen, excuse me, I'm looking towards a different screen here, but the activity, which is Discover Your DCU, an interactive book, so that was the H5P content, when they completed it, they were awarded 50 points. And you can choose, vary the points. It's an open text box. You can choose specific activities, and you can also set it in such a way that they must do certain activities in a particular sequence. The feedback that we got from the students was incredibly positive. They loved the gamification process. What was interesting for us, those students of all ages loved the gamification process, because we were under the impression, I was under the impression, that gamification may only attract a certain type of student. So we got it from all ages and all genders as well, which was great. And it allowed us then to look at the overall engagement, not just look at the number of clicks that was taken on the site, and to put that into perspective, we had, for the 4,000 students that we welcomed as first years, we had 1.3 million hits on that Moodle course page, which is incredible if you're looking at that, the volume of students versus the number of hits that we got. But also, we were able to say what they had done and their level of engagement. So was that just Cathal clicking on the same button 1.3 million times, or was that people actually engaging with the various different content and how they engage with it? And we did that through the points. So if I come back or cast your mind back to the scale down the bottom, if anybody scored above 320 points, we'd consider them highly engaged. And we had 46% had highly engaged with the process, but an additional 30% had actually were nearly highly engaged insofar as they were just under the 300 points. So it's 75% of our first year students had strong engagement with our transitions program. And we all know from ourselves, from our own transitions program, and the students start off with great enthusiasm, and they turn up in a room where the president welcomes them and the registrar welcomes them, and they go through all these various different speeches. But by the end of the day, never mind by the end of the week, their engagement levels and their enthusiasm drops off, or they spend more time in the bar than they do in the lecture theatres. This orientation and transitions program was over 4 weeks. So we had that level of engagement consistently for over the 4 weeks, which was a great win for us. So 75% of our students are highly engaging with our transitions process. And we made that by improving our standalone Moodle instance by adding in this plugin, a plugin that was created by somebody else, this level up plugin. So the next bit was co-creation, and this is something that I would strongly encourage as an approach for you to use to engage your students. And again, we looked at, you can do certain stuff to get students to co-create material in Moodle, but is there something else? Can we make it that little bit better? And during COVID, we had, and indeed even before COVID, we are aware that quite a lot of our lecturers were using an external platform called Padlet and getting students to contribute this post-its, this information, and it could be an image, it could be a URL, it could be text, but students were contributing to by creating these Padlet classes. We had issues with that with license cost. We had issues with that with GDPR concerns and also with accessibility concerns. So we didn't want to encourage them to use Padlet, but we knew Moodle wasn't up to the task. So we developed this plugin to actually facilitate that. As I say, it stretches back as far as 2019 was where we started working on this, or had this idea, but we wanted to keep all of our data in one place. We wanted to keep all of our students in one place and not to go to external platforms wherever possible. So we designed this Moodle board, and to give you an indication, this is a screenshot taken from one of the demo pages that we have. So you can see students will write a little post-it, an online post-it. You can see those post-its can be text, they can be video with text, they can be images, they can be URLs. Everything that Padlet could give you, everything that Trello could give you, we can give you through Moodle board. But the advantage that we had for this is it can be anonymous in the same way Padlet is, but equally it can be, you can track who's done it by looking at the logs, and we have a report that generates says who has said what post, just to make sure if any student says anything untoward that you can track down who they are. But also if you want to use it as an assessment tool, you can, and again it will integrate with Gradebook as well. So that's what it actually looks like. This is how simple it is to post the Padlet, to post the board in there. They click on add, they type in the title, they type in their content, or click on the appropriate button if it's a link, an image, or a YouTube video. And there's a ton of ideas in terms of co-creation, and in the slides that I'll share with you, as I said, I'll put the link in the post in the chat room now in a second. But in the link there is a Google spreadsheet with a list of huge ideas on how you can get students to help you co-create material by using board. You can ask them simple questions like, what topics did you know? What do you want revision on? What's your wish list? What did I do well? What didn't I do? There's a huge amount of activities that you can do. But again, what we wanted to do was encourage the student co-creation of material, while at the same extent making sure we had an accessible, fully GDPR compliant, and a fully integrated system within Moodle. So I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Emmett, but I believe you have board on your Moodle site. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do indeed, Mark.
Yeah, so again, this is freely available for you to use. We are taking more suggestions as to what else people want boards to be able to do. So have a play with it, see what it does, see what it doesn't do, and let us know, see if it's something that you're interested in. But what the point I wanted to get across to you today is, in your virtual learning environment, you can do so much with the students to engage with them. And if Moodle doesn't do it, if your core Moodle doesn't do it, it is possible for you to use plugins, enhancements for it. And one enhancement seen today, which is the Panopto plugin to go with it. And indeed, if you haven't done already, I'd encourage you to use the Mahoodle plugin for Mahara, which also makes sure you have smooth integration between Moodle and Mahara, your e-portfolio system. So the power of the plugins, your Moodle VLE can really empower you to teach the way you want to, and not keep it structured just based on the technology side of things. As I say, there's a range of options open. And just to put the development into perspective, we had a collaboration with, at what was at Loan, is now TUS. We had a collaboration with UCL, which was in London. And of course, we had payment from the National Forum through the SETU funds to actually develop this. So we recognized a pedagogical problem of lack of engagement with students, and then we built a technology to actually address that problem, all the time leading with the pedagogy rather than the technology. So it's possible, if you are interested in modifying and enhancing your Moodle, to get the likes of National Forum funding to do that. Or even better, look at one somebody's done already, and it'll just make your life that little bit easier. What I want to do, and I'm conscious I sped through it, but I know you're running a few minutes late behind your initial schedules, so trying to catch you up on time. But if you want to do engagement, you need to plan for it. You need to design it and integrate it, have those key points. And whether it's engagement through gamification or whether it's engagement through co-creation, you need to actually design it within your structure, design it within your modules and within your classes. And planned engagement can work incredibly well. And so work with your teaching and learning units in either campus to identify opportunities as to where you can get students to co-create, or indeed even better, work with your colleagues in your community, work with your lecturers, your colleagues in your school or in other schools, to actually learn from one another. And that's what I love about these particular initiatives that Emmett's invited us today, where colleagues can share information on how they're doing stuff or challenges they've come in with. And don't be afraid to engage outside of your institution as well, because maybe you're a chemist and you don't think that the stuff the engineering doing down the corridor is useful to you, but the chemists down in Cork might be useful, or the chemists that, well, Cork people won't even go there, but chemists down in Galway or Dublin or where else have you. So engage with your counterparts, because I guarantee you the problems you're having in Waterford, the problems you're having in Carlow are not unique to Carlow and Waterford. The challenges that you have with engaging students. So we definitely should learn off one another. That's what I would say. So that's me done. Hopefully I've caught you up on time. I think I have.
Excellent stuff, Mark. Thank you very much. Any questions for Mark?
No questions. Silence is golden, huh?
Well, I do have one question actually.
I
was trying to stay quiet today, but it's not working. The gamification, does the interest in the gamification last right through the program, or does it kind of wane after a while?
Really good question. And that's why I'd actually refer to designing it properly, designing it intently, because when you, this is probably not a word, but I'm going to make it up anyway. When you over gamify a course, you turn students off. So it has to be planned and strategic gamification. There are various different techniques, and I'd be delighted to share them with you. But you want to build them up to a particular point. You want to give some students that extra little bit to engage, those that want to go above and beyond, but you don't want to set everybody's target at 100%. You want 100% of your gamified activities, maybe set them at the 80% level, similar to what we done with the 300 or 600 points versus 800 points, because we found when we wanted students to do everything to get that badge or get that award or certificate, that students waned off, to say the least. And then the other thing I will do is set small activities to build them up towards bigger activities. That works quite well too.
Great, thanks. Yeah.
Problem.
You mentioned plugins, Mark, and you obviously worked with the National Forum and worked with the development to get one created. But do you also go and just look at getting ones that are already available, or do you?
Yeah, there are literally thousands of plugins available on the Moodle community site, but we're quite fussy, although our IT manager mightn't agree, but we are quite fussy about what plugins we install, because Moodle is such a critical piece of infrastructure for us. We don't want any code from any Mickey Mouse developer appearing in here and interfering with existing plugins. So while it's possible for anybody to create a plugin, I personally will veer down the road of looking at established developers, Moodle partners within Ireland. So they're not going to go away anytime soon. We did have an instance where a developer developed an excellent plugin for us, and then took up a job, left where they were currently working, which was in a university in the UK, and took up a job in a software company. And then he said, well, I can continue to develop it, but my rate is now €1,000 a day. So you need to be careful as to who you actually use. And that's why, as I say, we decided to restrict our plugins to be ones that were developed by recognized Moodle partners, or people we know, as I say, aren't going away in the long term. But what happened in the particular example with Moodle Board, we had €5,000 from the National Forum as part of one of the SETU projects. And we knew we had this problem. We had €4,800 of a bill for Padlet. And I thought, well, if I spend that now this year, I won't have Padlet next year, and I'll need to come up with the €4,800. So I then approached other institutions. So as I said, approached Loan and approached UCL. And I said, listen, if you could contribute $1 or $2 grand to the pot, between us, we might even able to stretch up to 10 grand. And the stuff we could do with 10 grand would be great. And we developed what I call phase 1 of it, which we released in 2020, I think. And then others saw it and said, well, actually, I have a spare 3 grand I found down by my couch, the side of my couch, or wherever they found the money at the end of the term. And we said, well, give us the specifications that you want, give us the improvements that you want, and we'll try get them in. And we're at the stage now where we initially had 10 functions or 10 features of it. There's now 38 different features, which is incredible. Now, before you get too excited with it, 38 features, a lot of that could be underneath the hood that the standard lecturer wouldn't see, but it's how it integrates with the different systems. So probably from a functionality point of view, it probably has about 20 things that it can do.
So the idea was you basically just build one yourselves and not have to depend on getting annual subscription for something else every year. Yes. Now we built it. We actually got Brickfield Labs, which was the company I should have mentioned on the last slide. They were the ones that actually built it because they are a Moodle partner. They are a recognized developers. And with all due respect to my lovely colleagues in our IT department, they don't have the skill set to develop but probably they could develop it, but they don't have the time nor the desire to be developing this sort of stuff either. So that's why we didn't want to rely on internal expertise for it.
Thanks a million for that, Mark. Interesting as always. Just on the plugin side of it, we have an approved list of plugins from Innovation that we can install. So they do a code review of it before we can just install it. What I am interested in, because we're wrestling with it a small bit ourselves here, is the forthcoming, or well, the just released Moodle 4.0. What are DCU's plans in that regard? Do you hope to go to 4.0 or are you waiting for 4.1?
No, we're going to 4.1. We're going to 4.1 for a number of reasons. One is upgrading every year is very time consuming, and staff are just getting used to one version, and then another version happens and more functionality. And we think it's great, but they're only still managing to do the initial functionality for it. But the other reason is jumping to 4 is such a big change because of the interface improvements they've done, and they're all great. I'm not complaining whatsoever, but it's going to take time to explain those changes to everybody, but also explain why those changes have happened, and to bring in focus groups with staff and with students to actually get more feedback from them and then enhance it that little bit more. But we're moving to 4.1 and we'll move next year. And the reason why we're choosing 4.1 is because that will allow us then upgrade every second year thereafter, which will allow us the summer in between to concentrate and then reinforce the pedagogical benefits of the various different features, rather than just saying, here's new technology, here's new technology, here's new technology all the time, you know?
Brilliant. Thanks a million.
No worries. Well, I will, if I haven't done already, I think I just did earlier, but yeah, I've posted the slides in there, and as I say, feel free to cut, paste, plagiarize, harvest, whatever the case may be, in terms of using that content wherever suitable for you.
If there's no other questions, guys, for Mark, we can, I think we're okay. Mark, yeah, again, thanks for the talk. Yeah, it's great to see the blend of gamification and game elements, and the scavenger hunter sounds a brilliant idea. You're getting people using the systems before they've even set foot, really, or before they've even become a first year. That's really, really clever way of doing it.
And it's really simple, because we just had a series of videos of the campus, which our marketing team had captured anyway, and we just took them down off the site and then embedded through H5P activities various different questions and tasks. And we used the Marvel inspiration by saying there was Easter eggs scattered throughout the various DCU videos to sort of capitalize on that sort of stuff, and it went down really well.
Excellent. Again, Mark, thank you so much.
Actually, sorry to put my gosh, I did have one question that you just reminded me there when you mentioned the scavenger hunt. Getting computer services to create the accounts for students who may never arrive from DCU, is that, how much of a challenge was that?
No, it's not, because they already exist. For them to have an application form, they have to have an account. For them to be on the system, to be made an offer, they have to have an account. So when an offer is out, it has to be K McCarthy or K McCarthy 2 or whatever it is that's there. So the problem isn't the technology, the problem is the processes, where people say, no, this is the process we've always done and we do it because of this reason. And once you get over it, the whole computer says no excuse, because 9 times out of 10, it's not the computer. Once you get over that, you'll do quite well. But for me, I would look at how your accounts are generated, and then you can sort of say, well, instead of you sending out your username and password that day, you can actually send it out 2 weeks earlier or 3 weeks earlier. Even a week earlier will make the difference, because the students are blasted out of it with information. It's like trying to get a drink of water from a fire hose. It just can't happen, right? And they miss out on so much information then as a result. Whereas if you are getting the purely welcome to Waterford or welcome to Carlow information before they start doing their lectures, just makes sense, you know? But there's no reason why you can't have an account generated beforehand. I know your IT manager is going to kill me now for saying that, but
Mark, thanks again for your time, and a great talk, and really interesting to see what you're doing with functionality in Moodle. And again, thank you, and have a good day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers for the invitation, and thanks for your time. Bye.
Almost there now, really, I guess. Thanks to Mark, as I said, again, for his keynote speak. What we're going to move on to next is a second breakout room. So what we're going to do this time is a little bit longer. So thank you, Natalia. She shared the link for the breakout room. So again, chat, consider, and collaborate. About 15 minutes. This is a little bit different from before. The same, but different. Okay, so a little bit of a background, a little bit of a story to get your creativity and get your creative juices going and a creative challenge going. This year, my son said to me one day, he heard a song on the radio, and he said, who sings that song? Or he must have heard someone in school say to him that there was such and such a song on TikTok, and it was by somebody called Madonna. And he said to me, who's Madonna? And what kind of songs does she sing? So I was like, what? Who's Madonna? What do you mean, who's Madonna? But obviously he's a different generation, so he wouldn't be too familiar with who Madonna is. And then shortly afterwards, he said to me, all the lads in school are talking about Red Bull. What's Red Bull? So he had 2 questions for me. Who's Madonna? What songs does she sing? And what's Red Bull? So when you go into the breakout room, what I want you to think about is those first 2 questions. How would you answer them? What would you say? Would you design something? Would you create something? Would you share something? Would you explain something? Would you play a song? What would you do to teach someone what would a learning experience be for someone that you wanted to answer those 2 questions? Who is Madonna? What does she sing? And what's Red Bull? And the last thing then, it's not about a learning moment, it's about you. So what's one thing that brings you and or your students energy? No, I'm conscious of the fact that comes directly after Red Bull, and you could answer the question of that. The answer is Red Bull. So fair enough if it is Red Bull, but you get the point. It's so the first two is a kind of a creative thing. How would you create? What would you create? What would you do? How would you teach someone? How would you share that information? And then number three is just what's the one thing? So everyone does something that just brings you energy, and it's different for everybody. So it's just to get you thinking about what that might be. And then maybe when you know what that might be, you might decide I might use it a little bit more next year, because if it brings you energy, it's probably good for you. And if it brings you energy, it probably by transmission brings your students a bit of energy as well. So again, we have a Google form for this. And what I want to show you on the form is, so yeah, breakout session number 2, it should have been shared with you there. You have the link in the chat. Thank you very much, Natalia. And again, when you go in to the breakout room, just make sure you have the form open up. And when you go in, again, the same thing, you have question 1, or, consideration 1, consideration 2, and then just for yourself, what's the one thing that brings you energy? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the breakout rooms again. You should go back into the same ones you were in. What we'll do is we'll give this one, I'll give you 10 minutes or so, a little bit longer for this, because there's a little bit more things to think about. So just how would you share? What would you do to answer those 2 questions? And then what's the one thing that brings you energy? So back to the breakout rooms, it should be the same as previously. And it's 12:30, come up to 12:35 now. So about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll bring it back and we can have a chat about what you discussed and what you thought and what you shared. So I'll see you all in about 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Neil just asked me, did I have Red Bull? I didn't have Red Bull. I haven't had Red Bull in quite some time. So if you had Red Bull in your breakout room, that's fantastic. You'll be buzzing for the next 15 minutes or so. Welcome back, everyone, and thanks for filling in the form, and thanks for thinking about the challenge. So just if someone wants to turn on their microphone or just share what you talked about or what you thought you might do to answer the questions before I get to the Google Forms, feel free. Or any ideas you came up with of how you would explain those 2 things?
Madonna, the video, Roseanne had an idea with Madonna that you'd get a clean version of a lot of her songs or music videos and kind of do like a montage of her reinventing herself continuously to what she is today, which haven't seen her in a couple of years, but I guess she has a lot of work done, I would imagine.
That's very clever. That's really clever. Yeah, thanks. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to share the screen and just see some of the responses. Or anyone, please feel free to jump in just what you might have discussed in your group or in your breakout room. So
what we were saying, sorry, Emmett, what we were saying is we try and link her to whatever it is that we're teaching. So,
okay.
Madonna is, I suppose she's an icon, and we know, like Neil was saying, her music goes on, and she's maybe she was a precursor to girl power or whatever,
yeah.
But she's also a brilliant business person. So,
okay.
She's famously said that she always knows where the money is and nothing goes out of her account unless she signs the checks. So, it's about,
That's very clever.
That wider aspect as well. So, just to...
Excellent point, Sharon. Yeah, so you could bring it back to many different contexts then.
But Emmett, they'd prefer what Neil was talking about than the music than the business aspect. But,
the montage. Excellent. So I'll just take a snapshot of some of the responses, which is great. I love this. She's the mother of the Messiah. Excellent. Red Bull is Pitbull's dad. Excellent. So what a singer? YouTube. She was Lady Gaga of her generation. Fantastic. Give them some YouTube links and photos. Brilliant. Challenge the norm. Play a song. Music icon. Pop queen. Excellent. Get them to do it. I presume sing a song or something. Red Bull. Wikipedia, or just drink it. It's a sugary caffeinated energy drink. Show a picture of a can. Very unhealthy. Yeah, it is. It's bad for you, scary stuff. And what's the one thing that brings you or your students energy? Switching up activities. Great. Music for me. Play loud, lively music and dance if possible. Lovely. Coffee. Yeah, coffee works for me too. And sunlight. Actually, that's the perfect combination. Coffee in sunlight, I always find, is fantastic. Those 2 things work really well for me. Allow them to chat to each other, images, and keep them on their toes. Yeah, I think the reason that's just there is because it's different to everybody. Someone might have something that brings them energy. So kind of my hobby is to go for a run. Now I know it's weird because at the end of the run you're wrecked, but you usually come back feeling better than you did at the start. So it does kind of give you a bit of energy. But I suppose in terms of a class, there's often things you do in your class which just brings energy. Something like a breakout room. So a breakout room can bring energy, or having a VVox and have an online poll. You're just bringing people back in the room. So that's fantastic. So thank you everyone for joining in that breakout. And we're going to finish up shortly. I'll just return to my slides. And then I will just share with you, I suppose, what I shared with my son. So he did ask me who's Madonna and what's Red Bull. So I had this challenge, this design teaching, learning, design challenge of how will it create a learning experience to explain what these two things are. So this is what I did.
Oh, wow. If you're that tired, Peter, maybe you should have some coffee.
Yeah, or you could have some Red Bull.
Red Bull? What the hell is Red Bull?
You never heard of Red Bull? It's an energy drink.
Here you go, Peter. It's on the house.
So, what do you think?
So in that 50-second clip, I explained who Madonna was, what kind of song she sings, and what Red Bull is. So Family Guy to the rescue once again. So guys, yeah, look, thanks for the breakout room. Thanks for being here today. At this point now, it's just a case of, I suppose the point of that is, as a learning designer and an instructional designer, you're often thinking, I want to create something new. I need to show someone to do something. I need to create new content. I need to, do something. But often you just need to share something, or you just need to curate something. And like curation is a skill in itself. There's so many stuff out there. It's about curating stuff. So that was a learning moment for me. I could just curate that video and share that video. And that's the recurring theme that's coming up the whole time today. All the speakers have used, even from the very start, Helen was talking about sharing, and all the speakers about, sharing, and it's curation and sharing. And that brings us back to the very, very start when I asked about what does the word amplify mean to you. Do you remember at the very start? And we all went into VVox and we all put in a word cloud, and the word that was bigger than the rest was loud. So, and that can be the case. Amplify can mean loudness. And that's what it can mean. It's like something is big. So you amplify something, you make it big, or you make it noisy, or you make it loud. And that can be good, but that mightn't be really what you want. But so amplify can mean, and that was the idea of the team of today. And that, as I said, we brainstormed as a team, what will we come up with? And amplified was the one we picked on. And it's kind of back to this idea that, like, yeah, it can be loud, but in a different context, amplify can help bring something that's quiet and give it more of a voice. So you can bring something that's quiet, or you can bring something that's small or little, and you bring it from being little to being a big help. And what I really mean by that in terms of community of practice is that, like, there's lots of people I know in SETU, and lots of these people know, and they do lots of amazing and clever things. And they'd often say something along the lines, oh, this little thing that I do. So they know stuff and they do stuff, and they do it as part of their practice or part of their design or part of their teaching. And they just kind of think, oh, this is just something I do on that thing. It's just this little thing. And people can be very kind of just like, minimizing of their own kind of knowledge. And they'd often say, oh, this is just something small that I do. So they're kind of saying it's something small. It's just a little thing that I do. It's just something small. But the reality of that is that by sharing this just a little thing, it can really make a big difference. And that can really have a big help or have a big positive impact on somebody else. So you're bringing something that's very small and you're amplifying it into something that's a bit bigger. You're sharing that thing with someone else who doesn't know how to do that thing. And it's kind of really back to, I saw this quote recently, and it's really back to this core idea that even if you consider yourself just a beginner, there's always someone one step behind you that can learn from you. And that's true. So the first time you do it and you go, I don't know anything about this, but you may have used it for a week or two and the person behind you has never used it at all. So that's kind of the key thing. We're all kind of learning, and there's always new stuff. And I hope you've heard today about, we are the Center for Technology Enhanced Learning, and we do support technology, but it's pedagogy first. It's all about, is this good for the learner? And can we support that with technology? So this is the case, like, even if you consider yourself a beginner, there's always someone one step behind that can learn from you. And that to me is what the community is all about. It's about a collection of all these little voices, all these little things, and that's the community of practice. So it's lots of sharing. So by lots of people sharing lots of what they might call, oh, this little thing that I do, or this small thing that I know, or this thing that I do over here, or the button I press, or whatever I do in my class. And by lots of people sharing lots of those things, it can really, really have a big impact and have a big positive impact on the community. And that is pretty much what community practice is all about. That we're coming together and we're sharing stuff and sharing thoughts and sharing what we know with other people, and everyone. It's a cycle. It's a positive cycle that everyone then gets something from it. But I keep picking that word small or little because people keep thinking, oh, like I won't show how to do that because that's obvious. But it's not obvious to everybody. You know how to do it, but it doesn't mean everyone else knows how to do it. But so that's why I love the idea of Amplify today. It's not about being loud or brash or bold. It's the difference. It's about collecting all these things that we know and we do and sharing them, amplifying them, making them more shareable and more understanding, and sharing what we do with other people. And that to me is a community of practice. So it can be a big help, and it is a big help to people. So that's the reason for the word amplify for today. So just before we finished up, I'd ask you to go back into the VVox. It should be the same link from earlier on. But the question in the VVox that you should see on your device is, what's your takeaway from today? So you've heard lots of some great keynote speakers. You've heard from Helen, you've heard from Ken, you've heard from Naomi and Mark and Carl, and you've heard lots of different stuff about lots of different things and all the contributors in the videos. So what's your key takeaway from today? And I can share the word cloud there. Madonna is a singer. Fantastic. That's it. Madonna's a singer. Enjoy the tech. I love it. Red Bull is a drink. Super. Enjoy the tech. Yeah, that's great as well. Yeah. So I'll just give that another minute or so, guys, before we wrap it up. Hopefully you've all been able to access that. Yeah, new tools to try. Yeah, Madonna. I like that word, try. And there's another word I like a lot, and Naomi mentioned it, and so too did Mark. It's the idea of play. They talk about gamification, but Naomi even had to talk about, play, and you interact and you collaborate, and the idea is something's play and you have fun. Because oftentimes people say, oh, I need to know this piece of tech before next Friday. Whereas if you rephrase that, can I play with this piece of tech for the next week or two? And then that's a whole different mindset. I'll play with Panopto, I'll play with VVox, I'll play with this thing. And then once you play with it, you get more use, and then you're more comfortable in a real thing. So Red Bull is a drink, Moodle board, Madonna is a singer, new tools to try, co-creation, fantastic. Notion, yeah, I think Martin has sold. I think Martin is on commission for Notion, but yeah, no, he uses it phenomenally well. So it's great to see people are thinking about using that. Collaboration, many EdTech drink, Red Bull is a drink, people's passion. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I hope what you mean by that is the speakers today displayed some passion, and you picked up on that. And share small things. Yeah, I love that. So it's all about, yeah, if lots of people share lots of little things, we'll have a big outcome. That's kind of it. As opposed to just being one person share 20 things. It's lots of people share lots of little things. And the community of practice is about people just saying, can I share this thing that I do? And I want people to know how I do it, and I feel comfortable doing that. So guys, thank you so much for that. I'll stop that poll. Yeah, so all I want to say this moment in time is thank you. Thanks. I want to say, first of all, thanks. I work with the CTEL team here in SETU Waterford, and I've previously worked with colleagues in Carlow, so it's great to have both campuses on today. But thanks to the CTEL team that I work with every day, we have Ken, Connor, Carl, Neil, Natalia, Fiona, and Laura. It's great work with all of you, and Connor's having a wonderful time on a cruise, so he's fantastic. Be happy he can watch the recording. I also want to say thank you to the speakers. We had Dr. Helen Murphy, we had Ken McCarthy, we had Naomi Wahls from TU Delft, we had Dr. Mark Glynn from DCU, Carl shared the demo, the quick demo on Panopto, and then we had lots of people who gave their time to record the video to share their contribution into just-a-minute videos. So all these things matter. They all take time. They all take time to put together and to think and to design and understand. But people came back and were able to then make what we had today. So finally, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being part of the community. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining in today in the VVox polls, in the breakout rooms, in the chat. I hope you got something out of this. I guess the whole thing is without people, there is no community. So thank you for being here today and thank you for continuing support. And all I'm left to say is it's just 1 o'clock. It's the middle of June. But for a lot of the academic staff, I'd like to say enjoy the summer, and we look forward to collaborating again with you next semester. And that's what it's about. You can come and say, we're trying to figure this thing out, and we'll collaborate and we'll figure something out and work together to do that.